Welcome to a brand new episode of Sequel Rights, the podcast where we take a look at the franchises that make you go, they made how many of those? And we give each and every sequel a fair trial. My name is Jordan Kamps, and I'm here with
Elizabeth Helly
and
Tyler Ramboy Hymanson.
Ramboy. Oh my God, you guys! You're probably, you wake up Wednesday morning, you go to download our episode. You're probably looking at the title like, wait a minute. I thought they were doing Phantasm Ravager. I thought there was another Phantasm movie still to talk about. But hey, we got an amazing opportunity to bring you guys a special episode about the brand new Tremors movie, Tremors Shrieker Island. And we have a guest that I cannot even believe happened. Eliz, who's with us this week?
I mean, we got an interview with Burt Gummer himself.
A living
Michael
legend.
Gross.
Oh my
Michael
God.
Gross.
So excited. I can't wait for you guys to hear this interview. It's so great. In fact, we're going to put it at the start of the episode, just so you guys can get a little bit of layout of this week's episode. We're going to have Michael Gross's interview, and then we're going to go into our spoiler-free thoughts of the movie, and then move into a spoiler section where we have a little bit more to hear from Michael about the film, and then we'll send you all home.
Yeah, so go ahead, Brilliant.
I was going to say, this movie literally came out yesterday. Mm-hmm. So that's the reason we're doing this. I know we normally just spoil everything because who cares about,
Well, because we're usually doing movies that are 20 years old. So if you want to come listen to Michael Gross's interview, you can do that. No worries. You can still listen to him and then go watch the movie. But when we get to that spoiler wall, stay away because you're definitely going to want to enjoy this movie spoiler free.
That's right. Yeah. We respect the Tremors fans. And just also a thank you to our favorites at Universal 1440 for helping us see the movie early for this. Really exciting.
Yes, absolutely. The 1440 Legion.
But before we get into the interview, as we always do, Eliz, where can people reach out to us and give us their thoughts on Tremors?
Yeah, email us to sequelrights@gmail.com, or you can talk to us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at Sequel Rights.
And Tyler?
And please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. 5 stars goes a long way. We'll get more people. If you're hearing us for the first time because you're coming here from Michael Gross and you like what you hear, the best way to have more people and share the love and help us out is to rate and review us. We'd really appreciate it.
All right. Well, enough about us. We know why you guys are here. You want to hear Michael Gross talk about the latest Tremors film, and here he is.
Well, we are so excited for our guest today from Tremors. It is the man, the myth, the legendary Burt Gummer himself, Michael Gross. Thank you so much for coming on.
It's an absolute pleasure, Elizabeth. Good to be with you. All of you.
Yeah, it's so great to have you here. And we just want to start out like, wow, it's been 30 years since the original Tremors film was released. And I'm just curious, like, what is it like to step into the same shoes of this character over these decades?
He is just always fun. Whenever the opportunity is presented to me, I raise my hand and say yes. Burt was a great bit of comic overkill 30 years ago, and he still is. They created a wonderful character. And when a writer does that for an actor, that's like mining comic gold. Comedy is about exaggeration, overkill, stepping, taking something normal like a little paranoia, a little obsessive compulsive disorder, and running with it. And which is exactly what they did. And of course, the great irony was like, my God, that guy was right. Having said that he's right, let's also remember that every time he shows up, it's a different monster. So he's like, oh no, I brought the wrong stuff.
That's right.
So, so he always thinks he's right and he's over prepared. And then it turns out to be something else. And it's always fun to see him tripped up like that too. But I am still here, not because I think I wanted to be the lead in the series or the head man. Frankly, everybody else dropped out. After Tremors 1, Kevin Bacon, who was extraordinary in that, said, "No thanks, I don't know. I don't want to do a second." Fred Ward, after joining us for the second, said, "No, I don't want to do a third." We had some other people come in and for the third one, Tony Gennaro, who was in the original one, Charlotte Stewart, Nancy, Mindy. We had them back, and thank God for that. That was fun. It's always, and back to perfection.
Yeah.
It was wonderful. And in the fourth one, of course, an entirely new cast because it was a prequel. And I have basically been here because everybody else has dropped away. So I'm the last man standing. So I guess you could call Michael Gross a survivalist as well as Burt. I always intended for Burt to be on the fringes, much like I always compare him to Fonzie in Happy Days, and he works best because Happy Days worked so well, or the Fonz worked well, because he was surrounded by normal people like the Cunningham family. So there was, Richie Cunningham and his sister and a nice mom and dad. And in walks this, hey, And I think Burt works the same way. He has to be surrounded by normal human beings for him to be effective because he is so quirky and eccentric. So I never saw myself as the lead. It just kind of turned out that way.
Nice.
It's kind of incredible to see this character evolve, over all these years. And so after all these years, what do you find best gets you in the mindset of Burt Gummer for, before each film?
Well, it starts with the writing. It's usually about a year before these things actually start filming. Universal will come to me and say, well, I think we're going to make another one. Put your boots on. This is going to happen. And then we start talking ideas. For example, with Seven, I was from the very beginning, I said, let's take him somewhere we've never been before. We've been to Africa, we've been to Mexico, we've been to the Western United States, we've been to the Arctic. Let's go somewhere we've never been before. And so we decided on the tropics, and that made me think of Robinson Crusoe. And I said, how about Burt has completely left civilization, completely, even Perfection, Nevada, population 14 is too big for him.
Yeah.
And I said, and then we have to find a reason why he left. And we decided because the government was going to put in sewers, and that was it. He was not going to have, he was not going to have that kind of government intervention in his house and in his home, snooping around his sanitation. So that was the beginning premise. And the thing we also decided on very early was, I said, I want a woman in this. For 30 years, people have been crying, when's Reba coming back? When's Heather coming back? And the answer is never. Reba, for whatever reasons, this is not her. This is not what, she's a singer. This is not the prime thing she does. And she was not interested in coming back. I would have had anyone from the original cast come back in a heartbeat because they were so incredible. That being said, what energizes me is story like this. We said, okay, we've got to bring back a woman, and we want a woman who challenges Burt. Everybody else, no one challenges him, particularly a lot of guys. Well, maybe a few bad guys. Richard Brake in this instance is the actor. But I said, people are generally like a little squeamish around him. No, that's Burt Gummer. Don't mess with him. And I said, we all guys know, particularly guys that have been married for any length of time, that women's job is to challenge us, to say to men, why the hell are you doing that? Or why are you doing it that way? Or why, and so we wanted a female. I specifically wanted a female who was not afraid of him, just to say, mister, you're doing things all wrong. You got to rethink your life. And he's like, I thought I had it rethunk. I was sitting on a desert island. I was plenty all right. And now you're so we wanted Burt to be challenged in a way. For just somebody to say, man, you are doing it all wrong. So so that was part of it, and then we got into monsters and main plot and the bad guys and all that other stuff. But so that energizes me, and the other thing that energizes me every time I do this are the other cast members. The secret to staying alive on stage or on screen is to look in the other character's eyes while they're talking. I get my energy from the others. From the wonderful cast members with whom they surround me, whether it's Jamie Kennedy on 5/6, John Hader on 7, people like Richard Brake, Carolyn Langrish, who played the female in this, Jackie Cruz in this, and Cassie Clare, who was the black woman, that Amazon woman with bow and arrow. Yeah. I am energized by the people with whom I am surrounded. You want to play a good game of tennis, find somebody who's as good or better than you are to challenge you. So I'm always happy, and that's how I find my new energy. The script, the story, and the people with whom they surround me.
Yeah, speaking about the cast in the new film, I feel like everyone has a really great chemistry in this new movie, and I'm wondering if there's anything special, like you being the one who's been there all along, if there's anything that you do to welcome franchise newcomers to the world of Tremors every time.
Well, I do, I guess, because I'm literally and figuratively the old man on the set. I try to make them feel welcome, also, I'm not the only one. There's Don, Michael, Paul, the director who did 5, 6, and 7, who helped regenerate the franchise after 13 years of being down, who's come to know this and love this. And between the two of us, I think we're very welcoming and saying, look, just ask questions. And, this is quirky. This is weird. People look at the script, and they usually get it. If the script is right, they look at it and go, oh yeah, this is offbeat, as well as being scarier than hell. So they need very little help from me. They're usually extremely capable, and but I always try and set the tone, if you will, because I have to be prepared at my age, just mentally and physically, to show up. So I don't, so I'm very disciplined. I just have to be at my age to get through 6-day weeks. I should mention also, I may or may not be interested in this. I keep thinking of new and interesting ways to hurt myself in these films. In Tremors 5, I broke a couple ribs. In Tremors 6, I broke a tooth, chipped a tooth. It was very early on in the first day or two, and I was quickly raising a rifle, and the scope just took out half my tooth. So I spent the rest of that shooting day in a dentist chair in Johannesburg, South Africa, and on this one I tore a rotator cuff. Oh. And 2 weeks into a 4 or 5 week shoot, and then I had to do the rest, including all that machete stuff, with a torn rotator cuff. And so I existed on pain pills and exercise and just getting as much sleep as I could, and had the surgery after. I'm now still in PT, physical therapy, for this rotator cuff tear. So by and large, I'm getting my range of motion back, but oh my Lord, that was not fun. Wow. So, I have to be careful, and I have to be warmed up, because at my age, you can easily pull a muscle and stuff like this. So I just have to be very disciplined. I'll think of new ways to injure myself.
They've got you running.
Done yet?
They've got you running away from so many explosions in this movie. Like,
I know. And I had also pulled a muscle in I don't know whether it was my hamstring or something like that. So I was like, oh, guys, don't make me run again.
Well, I am a born and raised Nevadan, so like Burt Gummer is near and dear to my heart.
Right.
But there's a danger for that character of the audience reading him as this kind of negative prepper stereotype. But despite all his bluster, at the end of the day, he just always helps his neighbors. Can you just talk about the balancing act of playing a character like Burt?
That's interesting. I've always felt Burt is rough and tough and gruff and off-putting in a lot of ways, but I've always thought of people like that as people who are hard on the outside because they're soft on the inside. They're protecting something. Mm-hmm. And so I always see the humanity and, for lack of a better word, the fear in Burt. The fear is what propels his prepperness. He's a desperately afraid man. Now, we don't play fear, we play preppy. We play over-prepared. But at the heart of it, I think, is fear, which is a very human trait, and something we've all shared from time to time. And so, and yes, he is he's about precision and care and facts, not alternate facts, but facts and science, and he's very upset with people who will not listen and will not learn from those things, but he at heart, he's always there to help, partly because I think he looks at everybody and says, they're all too stupid to get it right. Somebody here with the expertise has got to be here sometimes, because they don't get it. They don't get it. And I think out of the goodness of his heart, because when push comes to shove, he's brought out of retirement time and again when he says, look, there are women, there are children, there are threats. And he goes, I gotta help. I gotta do something. I gotta do something. I tell you, one of the great things about this piece too is, you see, in every ensemble, these people are all so different. We have this disparate group of people who, in other cases, might not even be friends, let alone talk to each other. And yet they bond together against this common enemy. And I think there's something really fine about that in terms of the way it preaches to the human race. No human being is ever killed by another human being in these pieces. The body counts are all as a result of the monsters. Burt never turns his gun intentionally on another human being. In one of the early drafts of this, a writer who was new to us had Burt gets the drop on somebody and so forth. So it's like, all right, hold it right there. That's it. I said, no, Burt does not point his gun at other human beings. In our own crazy way, even in 2020, we're trying to keep this very family friendly and very old fashioned. People don't kill people. Monsters kill people. Mm-hmm. People are allies against outside forces. Very illustrative in these days of COVID,
Absolutely.
Folks, stop fighting and pull together. Mm-hmm. Let's not divide ourselves into enemy camps. We have something bigger out there. And that's what constantly happens in the Tremors genre. And I think that's one of the reasons people still love it. It's old fashioned and they're kind of family friendly values outside of a little maybe language that people don't like. The language get a little rough, but I think the heart is all there. Mm-hmm. At the very end, even people who are against Burt, Richard Brake, Burt wants to save him. Mm-hmm. Burt doesn't want anybody to die at the hands of these things. He's always look, you've been a shitload of trouble, but I don't want you to die. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So in that respect, he's a good guy. I like his heart.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's paved over with. There's a great. I think hearts are sometimes very stony, because they're protected. And there's a great quote from Great Expectations. There's sometimes when people in mourning or people who are crying, you say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm crying," and there's a great quote from Dickens that says. In Great Expectations, where he says, "Heaven knows we need never be ashamed of our tears, for they are rain upon the blinding dust of earth overlying our hard hearts." Tears are the rain that helps soften our hard hearts. And so in some ways, I feel Burt is protecting a very, very soft place. And in 7, there's a woman there who's trying to get to it. And Burt is saying, "No, thank you very much. No, thank you very much." Every little bit has to be fought for, because the hardest thing in the world is to give away your place of safety. Your what you think is your sweet spot, even if it's not good for you. You say, "No, this is the bed I've made. I'm staying in it. It's a bed of nails, but it's familiar to me.
It's my bed of nails.
It's my bed of nails. Thank you very much, and you're not coaxing me away from it." So that's what we wanted to happen in this piece.
You talked earlier about how Shrieker Island brings a brand new locale to the Tremors series for the first time. And it's really a beautiful location. And I feel like it adds so much to this movie. What was it like being on set there in Thailand?
Well, it was beautiful. I mean, it's gorgeous country, a little warm, a little humid, but not impossible. Let me just say I brought a lot. The sun was very hot. I brought a lot of sunblock, just, that sort of equatorial sort of heat, and a lot of insect repellent, because there are certain I don't know. I got shots for Japanese encephalitis and this and that and all these other queer little diseases that you can get, because we were oftentimes in jungle places, at humid places where it's like a big petri dish, if you will. So lots of insect repellent and sunblock and shots. One of the reasons I actually grew my own beard for this thing.
I was going to ask. It's glorious.
It was like 4 or 5 months of, okay, let it go. My dear, dear, sweet, patient wife was so good about that, because, it wasn't just 4 weeks of shoot. For months, she had to wake up and look at this man across the breakfast table and go, what the hell have I got here? I'm married to Sasquatch. So the people at the local stores back at home, we live in Southern California, but a relatively small town. And the people just were like watching it grow over the months and go, what the hell are you doing, man? So I tried to explain, no, it's not my choice. But I decided with the heat and the humidity, I didn't want to deal with fake hair and glue. That we'd be, that we were in a humid place, that I'd be in and out, jumping in and out of water in those long-tailed boats and things like that. And I said, it's going to be peeling away, and that's not going to be fun. So I said, I want something that's part of my face. And so I simply started growing it because I felt comfortable in what they did, because my hair didn't grow as fast. They added extensions to the hair, which was great. I think it looked wonderful. And I just love the totally different look for Burt early on. And, I don't know. I won't tell you about the arguments I lost in this piece. I wanted him to. Well, I will tell you. If you have the time.
Yeah.
I wanted him. I want Burt to fight every inch to stay Burt. And he always thinks he's found the perfect sweet spot for himself, even if it's living out in the middle of nowhere. And so he has to be dragged kicking and screaming out of that. When Jimmy says, look, you got to help him. There are people here. He says, God, this is your destiny. Destiny's a bitch, but I'll do it. But I wanted him to think he wasn't going to change everything. That he was going to keep the hair and the beard and all that sort of stuff. And they said, no, we want to get him back to the regular Burt. And I said, but I want somebody to force him back into the regular Burt. And I want something practical, not just, I forget what they finally did. It's like, come on, go clean yourself up. See, I want Burt to fight for every inch of ground. And so my idea was, he's not going to take off. First of all, my joke was, every time he walked into a scene, people would go, oh, what's that smell? Because everybody's like, oh man, because he's been alone for months. He hasn't bathed. They didn't go for that. I wanted, every time he walked into a scene like that, I wanted him to go, oh geez, keep your distance, and that he was forced to take off the hair and the beard and clean up and shower for a very practical reason, because that's Burt saying, look, if we're fighting monsters, you can't go anywhere upwind of these monsters smelling the way you smell. Mm-hmm. So the reason you have to take off the beard is you're going to spook the monsters, because you stink, man. You stink. And so I don't know. I lost that battle. But I always want Burt to give in for very practical reasons. It's not emotional. It's not just, oh, clean yourself up. No, I'm fine the way I am. Thank you very much. Give Burt a practical reason to do something, and he'll do it. All right, you can't monster hunt like this, because you'll scare them away. They'll go running when they smell you, like a skunk.
That just gave me such a clear insight to the character, of like almost to a Monty Python level, where it's like, oh, I'm in my place. I'm not going to give anything up. And like, no matter where you put him, he thinks he's found it. Like, that's so funny exactly. to me.
And that's the way I felt with Carolyn Langrish, the female in this, that they had me in early drafts of this thing, sort of agreeing with her. And I said, I said, he's fighting for every inch of his autonomy. I said, the story's over if Burt gives in. She has got to take every new hill in this battle and fight her way up that hill. And Burt's not giving her shit. He's not, if it comes easily, my definition, I heard this long ago. Remember this. I think it's interesting when you look at film. I think of sentimentality. Sentimentality is unearned emotion. Okay? When somebody just cries or gives in without a fight, people find their places of safety and you got to fight to break through that. And I think conflict is the heart of all these, every good drama, first of all. So I said, even if this thing ends well, if this woman convinces Burt maybe he should try again or change something, his answer is maybe. That's as far as he can go. That's as far as he can go. Otherwise, it's sentimental. We know who this guy is, and you don't change people's lives in an instant, in a couple of weeks. I had a yoga teacher once who said, I was working very hard at my yoga, and my yoga teacher said, Michael, you're not going to do in one yoga session what your body has screwed up for decades. You're not going to be able to bend all the way. You're not going to, and I went, she's absolutely right. It was a long process that got my body to where it is. And don't try and undo it in a weekend. And particularly psychologically, it's not going to happen that way. People are going to fight to the death to stay the way they are unless they're really challenged.
Wow, that was so amazing. I honestly can't. I'm still like, we did that earlier today, and I'm just still riding the high of talking to Michael. He was so great and gracious with his time with us. That was amazing.
Truly a wonderful human being. That was such a joy to listen to him tell those stories and talk about this franchise and just talk about the craft of acting. It was a real treat.
All right, well, why don't we hop on a rickety boat to Shrieker Island?
You don't know what you're up against. I got this handled. You got a genetically enhanced giant carnivorous worm with tunneling abilities loose on your private island. This species should be left to die.
What exactly are we talking about?
Shriekers. We have 48 hours to stop these things.
Let's go, Ram boy.
Burt Gummer is a freaking legend.
Let's go.
Count me in.
She's culling the weakest from the herd first.
Crap, that means I'm next.
Oh, man. So we've been waiting for this sequel for quite some time now. When was the last one? Cold Day in Hell? Or what was it? That was what it was called, right? Cold Day in Hell?
It was in the before times.
2017,
Yeah,
maybe?
it was like 2 years ago, right?
Yeah, something like that.
Well, yes.
Yeah, it was already out when we recorded. It's not like we recorded it right when it came out.
I was going to make a Cold Day in Hell joke, and then I pulled up. I just buzzed the tower.
But yeah, we're always excited when a franchise that we have covered comes out with a new sequel, and here we are talking about it this week.
Tremors 7.
That's right, Tremors 7, and it's called Shrieker Island. So you know what that means? There's Shriekers, you guys.
They're back.
It's not a spoiler. It's in the title.
That's true. That's true.
And we haven't seen Shriekers for what? Like since the third one? They haven't been a main focus for quite some time.
Well, the Shriekers primarily appeared in the second one, and then I think there was some kind of thing with the ownership of the design, so they didn't really appear in 3 or 5 and 6. Other than in like diagrams and like explanations.
It's been all ass blasters and graboids.
Yeah, so ass blasters, graboids, and whatever the larva was called, I can't even remember. So yeah, this is a new design, but there's still Shriekers in the life cycle.
Well, and it's a new design because we have a Michael Crichton infused Tremor story here, because there is a biotech firm that is genetically modifying and restoring graboids for prize hunting, trophy hunting on a remote tropical island, which you guys, I love Biotech Island. I was excited about it for Cabin Fever. I'm excited about it for this movie.
This movie lands the Biotech Island way better than Cabin Fever.
I know. I also thought that specifically during the movie. I was like, God, this movie is so much better than Cabin Fever 3.
It does I think it does a great job. It has a very like Lost World feel, like right at the start. And then it does a good job of hitting some of these beats that you expect to maybe see or have seen in Jurassic Park films.
Yeah, and it didn't feel ashamed or like a ripoff. It was really more of an homage. Like, and they don't even bother to try to be like, oh, it's not Jurassic Park. They have a guy in a porta potty getting killed. Yep. You know, it's a reference to Jurassic Park.
Exactly. I was going to mention that, and I was like, it's not a spoiler because it's not a main character. It's some guy, and he's in the porta potty, and he actually gets sucked down into the toilet in a way that I thought was a really fun variation on it. It was a ton of fun.
Yeah. We get a little bit of Jurassic Park. We get a little bit of Predator. We get a little bit of a whole lot of Tremors, basically. You
get a little bit of Robinson Crusoe. You get some Castaway in there. Let's talk about our
most dangerous game.
Here. Oh yeah. Let's talk about what we find up front. We see our cadre of Silicon Valley douchebag hunters.
Yes.
Led by the fantastic. Oh, I'm blanking on the actor's
Richard
name.
Brake.
Richard Brake is super skeezy and awesome in this movie.
He's styled to look exactly like Richard Branson.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, no, it's like if Richard Branson spent too much time with Nick Cage, is his exact look. And then we have he's on the one side of the island, and there is a separate island with a bunch of wildlife researchers that are also part of his biotech company.
Yeah, we've got Carolyn Langrish as Jazz and John Heater as Jimmy.
Napoleon Dynamite.
Yeah.
So exciting. And, you know, it was, I don't think I've ever seen him in another movie other than that Blades of Glory or whatever. I was like, okay.
The Benchwarmers. He's been in some good stuff. Yeah.
I haven't seen them. So I was just like, okay, like this was just his personality. It wasn't just like Napoleon Dynamite because he still has some like the same vibes. He doesn't like come right out and curse like openly, and I love how he kept referencing movies, but of course never Jurassic Park because they're not quite going to tell you if Jurassic Park exists in this universe or not. But he mentions like Rambo, Predator, there were other ones too, but
Evil Dead,
Evil Dead.
Yeah, he's doing the Spider-Man bit of just like, hey, remember that old movie?
Yeah, I love that he was like a Tremors fan dropped into the movie.
Yeah,
yes,
he was really great. I enjoyed him in this movie, and he was, as a self-professed, Napoleon Dynamite super fan. Do you think that it's possible that his experience with Tina allowed Napoleon to mature into this character? And this is actually a sequel to Napoleon Dynamite.
I mean, you read my mind because I was gonna say that. So Napoleon's experiences helping to take care of Tina, and he always had an interest in hybrid wildlife, like the liger and like drawing animals and closeness with nature. So I do think that headcanon, you could think of this as a sequel.
You heard it here first. Sequel rights. Napoleon Dynamite 2, Tremors, Shrieker Island.
I love it. Yeah, that's hilarious. I thought he was really great. Like, I was worried that he might be like too shticky or something, but I felt like he really added a lot to the comedic side of the film, and it was not over the top. He just felt like he had more of like I think he does a really great job with just feeling like that everyman, like, oh man, this is like maybe how I would react, or how like a normal person would maybe react in these situations.
Well, and I think the tone is set by him very early on in the movie because last couple films, Burt and Jamie Kennedy, Travis is his name. Yeah. Burt and Travis are traveling to different places where they do not know the people at all. So yeah, it's sad when someone dies, but it's kind of like, okay, well, I didn't really know that guy.
Yeah.
John Heater sets the tone really, really early on because one member of their team is killed by Shriekers or maybe the Graboid. I couldn't really tell which one. But anyway, the guy dies, and John Heater is very, very affected and upset by this. You could tell that he's like really crying. He like goes to Burt when they find him and is like, you know, appealing to him because of this friend of his that died. And it's definitely like right off the bat tells you that this is going to be more serious and more character than we've seen in a while.
And I think it's something that's, I was thinking about this after talking with Michael Gross this morning of, you know, the other movies kind of rely on the relationship between Burt and Travis being this, you know, long lost son and this father-son dynamic that's kind of happening. And in this movie, you know, there's no justification really given for John Heater's character to be the one pairing up with him and stepping up to the plate. But I think that it's really, they have this shared unspoken need to stand up for their neighbors and their fellow man. And so they're both reluctant to do so in their own ways. Burt's, you know, has all the bravado and machismo to take things on, and John Heater's character is not somebody who would get in a fist fight. But they both cannot stand by while letting their neighbors kind of be in harm's way. And so it made for a lot more interesting dynamic than the kind of inherent bickering that came from the relationship of the other two movies.
Well, and I think too, I mean, John Heater is obviously top billed on this next to Michael Gross, and the cover shows the two of them. But I think that's more really a marketing thing and just what you've come to expect, because it's always Burt and some other guy for the last like 6 or 5 movies or so. And it just I think that's really kind of like a bait and switch, because it's really like more of an ensemble. Like, I don't think that John Heater is really in it much more than Catherine Langersham or Jackie Cruz from Orange is the New Black, who also is a really, really cool character that you get to see a lot of. And so it really is almost just like Burt still on his own, joining an existing team rather than this buddy thing that we've had.
Yeah, the ensemble of this is really, really strong. I really liked Jazz's character, Catherine Langersham.
Yeah, let's talk about her.
Yeah, she is Travis's mom.
It's actually, sorry, it's Caroline Langrish.
Oh, sorry, Caroline. Caroline, my bad.
That's okay.
Apologies.
And so as soon as she realizes what her boss has done, she tells John Heater that he needs to go find Burt Gummer. I actually thought that there was an amazing scene that I want to call out where she's talking to the head of this biotech company Bill that we described as Richard Branson, Nicolas Cage. And, he said, like, oh, I thought we were friends. And she's like, no, you have to shut this hunt down. And he goes full Quint and he's like, I've destroyed the radio. Like, we have to, this hunt is the only thing that matters to me. And he pulls out this. He's like, this is $50,000 whiskey and I'm offering it to you. And I'm offering it to you again. And that's what I classify as friendship. And she kind of pulls this surprising power move of just chugging the whiskey and just saying it's just whiskey to me and walking away from him. And I thought it worked really well. I really liked that scene.
And it's even better than if she had poured it out or thrown it in his face.
Absolutely. Which is, I expected, it was an unexpected twist in the movie for that scene to be that well written.
Yeah. Well, I'd be interested to hear what you think about the female characters, Eliz, but I feel like I don't recall from the last few films that any of them really stood out to me or were particularly strong. But I thought that, the 3 main female characters we get in this movie are pretty strong and all get moments to really lead the action or lead the team in some way. And I thought that that was pretty great for this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I was super happy to see that Jazz was as soon as I saw her on screen, I was like, a beautiful age appropriate lady for Burt. I was so excited because, so many movies and TV would have gone with some young thing, I don't think Michael Gross would have let that happen now that I've talked to him.
Mm-hmm.
But, I was pleased to meet her, and we didn't hear much about her before. Travis said she was a hippie, and I think it was at some weird concert or something that they hooked up, right?
Well, she does have a Grateful Dead tattoo on her arm.
Okay. And so she kind of explains, I didn't want to put you in this position. I didn't know what I was doing. I was young, and now she's a super successful bio scientist person. So it was really good. And there's no like outright romance in this. It's kind of the struggle of her trying to get Burt to come back into society and the rest of the world, because we have not talked about this yet, but he is living Robinson Crusoe style castaway on a little tiny island in Papua New Guinea.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The other casting, we talked about him a little bit, that I really loved was Richard Brake. I thought his character Bill was so fun, and I enjoyed the fact that we had what I felt was like a somewhat worthy adversary for Burt that was not a monster, like I feel like a lot of these movies we haven't had like a very strong non-graboid like enemy that Burt is going up against. And I kind of liked the chewing of the scenery that Richard Brake is doing, and there's some great moments that we can maybe get into in spoilers, but
yeah, it's like, we've had the tax man or the government G agents, coming after him, but like this is the right adversary for him. It's like the Craven the Hunter type, wild. Like it was a cross between Craven and Batman is basically what Richard Brake's character is happening, doing a lot of composites of his character.
Well, and he and his company have done like probably the worst thing that Burt could imagine, because Burt has spent his life hunting graboids and protecting people from them.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy created graboids unnecessarily where there were none.
Yep.
So it's yeah.
Yep. What else can we talk about before we get into spoilers here? We could talk the amazing location. This movie shot in Thailand, and you heard Michael Gross talk a bit about what it was like being there. And yeah, I think I mentioned it in the interview, but I think it just adds so much to this movie. Mm-hmm. And it's not, like the last one, it was shot in South Africa, pretending
South Africa for the Arctic.
The Arctic.
I thought it was going to be South Africa for tropics until they got to a certain scene, and then I was like, no, they're really there.
Yeah.
Like, I was really excited.
Like that first time they show the camp. Yeah. You're like,
this movie uses, like, it's one of those movies that if drone photography hadn't become cheap recently, it would be a completely different movie. They were able to get all of these vistas, all of these beautiful moving tracking shots through the jungle that are just gorgeous and really take full advantage of this location. Yeah. And, we were talking about all the starring characters. There's a lot of great supporting cast that are, they don't have a ton of lines, but it's a wildly diverse crew at Jazz's, research facility. It's populated with a lot of rich, interesting characters where we've in the, I can't remember, was it 5 or 6 in Africa?
5. Yeah.
5. They had the wildlife refuge. There was other stuff happening there, but I think that it took the best parts of that and kind of infused it with this research camp on the island.
Yeah, and no little kids really to protect. We're all adults, and
no guns. Because they're a research team, like they don't have, Burt doesn't have his arsenal, so they end up using a bunch of old World War II machetes with Pennsylvania steel and flame units, as they call them. And I really liked it. I thought it made it really fun.
That's just a great idea to be like, okay, you've got nothing. I mean, that was sort of why, one of the reasons that Tremors 4 was so interesting, and why, Back to the Future is so interesting, because you go like almost into another era or to another place where you don't have any of your stuff, but you still have to come up with the same result.
It was it kind of made me realize the comedy of the character. It's something that Michael Gross pointed out today in the interview, where he's just like, Burt's, he always preps for something, but he always has the wrong stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised he didn't say that he was denied critical need to know information.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, man.
He's like, you have no guns? That would have been some critical need to know information. I really did think he was going to say, you broke into the wrong damn World War II bunker.
Yeah.
That would have been glorious.
But this movie, there's some fan service, but it's also not overly concerned with that. So it's nice.
Yeah,
It does a better job than a lot of big budget movies that fan service.
Yeah. And it feels...
I won't name names.
Totally.
The dead speak.
Oh, God, yeah. Everyone knew what you were talking about.
I don't play Fortnite, so I have no idea what you mean.
Yeah,
you mean Tenet?
I feel like this movie does do a lot to show us something new. New locale, new, attacks by the Shriekers and stuff that they can do. And I wanted to credit, the director, Don Michael Paul, who's now directed these 3 of the newer ones, and he does this one as well, with like really, really giving a lot of strong direction. And I feel like the action that we see in this movie and like the effects and stuff is like really strong compared to some of the more recent ones where I was like, oh, maybe there's that one scene that was cool. There's a lot of great like slow motion and cool, like the Shriekers look amazing in this movie. I don't know what you guys thought about the CG and everything, but
this movie looks great. This movie does not look like a direct. It doesn't look like anything that it looks theatrical. This movie is it's the location. It's amazing VFX work, and it's like you said, it's great direction. They picked great set pieces and found action that works for these characters. And every character, I think that the reason that we don't remember, as many of the supporting cast in the previous movies is because some of the set pieces maybe didn't live up or didn't have so many action moments, but everybody here has something to do.
So I do want to talk about the location in this way too, because they also put out a Making Perfection 30-minute documentary that you can watch on YouTube, and then I think it's also going to be on the DVD as a special feature. But they were all saying how revolutionary it was to have a monster movie out in the desert, scary during the day. And yes, that was super revolutionary. But now we have seen that 6 times, including the Arctic, which was also during the day because it was actually a desert in South Africa.
Yep.
So the fact that we're in a completely different setting, while more similar to other franchises and other movies, it is very different for Tremors because we have not really seen Shriekers and Graboids in the dark, in water, in trees. And so while, we saw all that stuff in Jurassic Park, we haven't seen it with Graboids and with these characters and how they're going to how they've evolved and been genetically modified and all that. So it was really interesting and different for Tremors.
Yeah, and I don't want to go too far into it, but I really loved that the Shriekers actually get to live up to their name in this movie.
Yeah.
Okay.
in a fun way. Well, yeah, is there anything else you guys want to say before we move into spoilers? Because I think we gotta get into it.
I really liked Jackie Cruz's character Freddie as well.
Mm-hmm.
She was great.
She was.
Yeah,
great.
I liked. She had a great monologue telling John Heater that basically he's like, I'm not a badass. I can't do this. And he says, I'm just a kid from the suburbs raised by a single mom. And she's just like, single moms are badass.
Yeah, she builds him up when she needs to without that being her only purpose.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Like she exists on her own. And I think everything was really well written, really well directed. And I liked every character in this movie.
Yeah. It's a great time. All right. Well, if you guys have made it this far, we're about to dive into spoilers. Major spoilers. So do not... Yes, we're not fucking around here, okay? Like if you haven't watched the movie, go watch it. Enjoy the movie before you come back and listen to the spoiler section. It's starting right now. All right. Here we are in spoilers, you guys. Wow. Okay. So at what moment in the movie did you start to suspect that something might happen to Burt in this movie? Because for me, I started getting that vibe like before it became really obvious.
Yes. No, I did too.
Really? Oh, then I'm just a dummy because I think all the way until they flash forward to the funeral on a different day. I still was like, oh, he's gonna pop out.
Well, yeah.
I think what it is, I think that thing that foreshadowed it and really makes it work is that his interactions with Jasmine, a lot of her shots land.
Yeah.
Like he's kind of like he's so entrenched and he's such a pillar of I'm Burt Gummer and I will always be Burt Gummer. And like their interactions, so much of it is just like, fuck, she's right. Like,
yeah.
And I think that made it seem like, okay, well, I have to do this.
Like towards the end when they're like building up to this final confrontation, which is an amazing callback to the first film. I started to really get a feeling that like, oh man, like I feel like Michael Gross is really like acting with a lot of gravitas in these moments. And then the way he like, there's that part where he kneels down and talks to the ground and he's like, you're waiting for me, aren't you? Like, I was kind of like, oh man, is this a send-off movie? Is this a send-off movie? And then like right after that, there's that insane like slow motion shot of him walking and like, you know, just basically
the entire
taunting,
village exploding.
Yeah, taunting the mother like the huge graboid.
He gets on a horse and rides off.
Yeah.
I just was like, wow, they're really like milking this, and then you know, I started getting that feeling like, wow, okay, I wonder what's gonna happen here. And then yeah, once we have that amazing moment at the end where he jumps. He like John Heater and him are running to, you know, drive the graboid off the cliff. And he pushes John Heater out of the way, does this amazing slow-mo jump where he flips off the graboid.
Yeah, that was good.
And then gets eaten. And then, the plan goes off with a hitch. The graboid goes out, they blow it up and everything. And then...
I mean, they blow it up a lot.
Yes.
Like, it was... I know I referenced this too much. It was almost an arts-like situation. They used all the dynamite and then the pink... orangey goo is just everywhere raining, and so I'm just kind of like, okay, if he survived, like he must have not been eaten. I don't know.
Yeah.
So
also, I thought it was really funny because after the fact, when you realize that he's dead, I was like, oh shit! So they probably definitely blew him up.
Yeah.
And like that scene is like them reveling in the guts, like yeah.
And he's in there, and they didn't know.
Right. It's so messed up. It's so messed up.
They get artsed on them, but it's Burt Gummer instead of artsed. Yeah, it's definitely. Well, because we know that Burt can survive being eaten by a graboid
right.
Yep.
and cut himself out. So if they had not had all the explosives, there's a chance he could have survived. So they killed him?
That's
no,
right.
I'm just kidding.
I mean, that's kind of what I landed on a little bit. I was like, oh, well, he was probably in there, but then they blew it up too. I didn't know they were going to blow it up.
And I'm wondering if this is going to become among fans like a Leonardo DiCaprio Titanic situation.
Oh, yes. No,
like,
I know. The piece of wood is big enough. I know.
Like, did he really need to push John Heater out of the way and stay in the graboid's path for that long? Couldn't they?
I didn't realize John Heater was in Titanic.
Yeah. But yeah, could they have both jumped? Was there another way to do this? You know, was this really necessary? But that's what happens.
No, it totally was. Like he said throughout the entire movie that it was picking off this mega graboid was so smart that it was picking off the weakest competition. It was always coming for him. That was the only goal that it had. And he went and faced it.
Yeah, and man, I honestly, I did not think that these movies had it in them to make me tear up
emotional
and get emotional and like sad at a moment. But like, I thought that, the fact that this moment when, everyone celebrates, John Heater gets up and he's trying to recover, and then they start looking for Burt. And then this kind of like looking for Burt scene goes on for so long that, I thought it was actually really effective because my mind kept going from like, no, he's going to just show up. They're going to find him.
Yeah, he's fine. Yeah,
and then it kept going and I was like, oh no, he's definitely dead. Oh my God. I'm like starting to tear up and I'm like, oh, now it's going longer. No, he's definitely going to show up.
Yeah.
And I just kept like vacillating back and forth. And I found it incredibly powerful. And then, it just,
they cut forward to another day.
Yeah.
They're doing a little
And
ceremony.
you know it's another day because John Heater has a different Hawaiian shirt on.
Yeah. And honestly, everyone did such a good job in these two scenes with like actually crying. Like even the nameless side researchers are crying. You know?
Yeah.
It's just like, wow, okay.
It was very emotional, and it's like, it's like what Eliz, you were talking about how you get attached to these characters over a long period of time. That might actually be in an episode coming later, but that's kind of how I felt. We've been watching these movies, and I was never like, oh yeah, Tremors movies. There's no way I'm gonna ever cry during a Tremors movie. But here we are.
I was just so shocked that they were actually doing it that I actually didn't cry for once.
Wow, okay. I felt very like intense. I was like, oh my
I think
God.
they did it in the most Tremors way possible, right? Because like the moment where it's dawning on you is the moment where like everybody's kind of reveling in all the goop falling on top of them, and like the monster movie, and I think that Michael Gross mentioned that these movies are family friendly in their own way. Like they have their own tenets, their own rhythms, and everything else like that. And I thought that it was a really wonderful punctuation on Burt Gummer's kind of arc, and him being like, okay, well, I have to I had to protect these people. We didn't really get into that. There's 800 indigenous people on this island, and there's everything else, and also I thought that the moment leading up to it made it even more powerful with John Heater being there with him and him shoving him out of the way, where John Heater didn't have to be there. Like he just I can't let this guy do it by himself. And his response to that is, I can't let you put yourself at risk, and I can handle this. And so you have the super camp funness of Tremors, where there's orange blood flying at everybody and it's getting in people's mouths and, everything else. And they are reveling. It's like, we killed the monster. Yeah, we did it. Everything. Yeah. But it comes at a price. And all of that is just executed so well in this, and then brought home by this end credit sequence.
Oh man. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, so they do kind of a montage of Burt's moments, and even Hiram is in there too. And then they kind of end with him putting on his hat 5 different times or whatever.
Yeah.
And,
that's how he saddles up. That's how he rides off into the sunset.
And they have that, earlier in the movie, they had mentioned like, there's even a Burt Gummer Day. And then they have that little title card that comes up like, celebrate Burt Gummer Day.
April 14th.
April 14th.
Right?
Yeah. And then don't forget to do your taxes the next day.
I thought that was perfect. I mean, yeah, I think it was very unexpected, especially since, these are, I feel like Tremors is one of those quintessential, like, those movies are going to go on forever. And now and now, the guy who has been in it for forever isn't in it anymore. So I don't know. We'll see what happens.
So, yeah, I mean, who cares what we think about the ending? I know you want to hear it from the man himself. However, Justin, did you want to say something about the Shriekers and spoilers? Oh, that they shriek for real now?
Oh, yes. I just thought that was really cool that like these, they had genetically modified the graboids. Now when the Shriekers come out of it, the Shriekers are also modified, and they, do this really loud shrieking thing. And there's this whole, sequence with it where everyone's like, my ears.
Yeah, their shrieking is now so loud that it will disable.
Yeah, it's weaponized, which is sonic weapons are real.
Yeah.
So. Before it was just annoying.
Yep.
Yeah, they didn't actually do anything except have the predator vision. But that was all I really wanted to say. Yeah.
All right, so let's hear about the ending and spoiler questions from Michael Gross. So, how did this idea for Burt to finally die come along? Was it something that came from you or more from the script? And how did you find out and react?
Early on, as we were devising the script, I think the idea came from the director, Don Michael Paul, while we were still in early drafts, and said, "How would you feel if that happened?" I said, My first impulse, being just a paranoid actor, was like, oh, they're tired of this. They want to. They're finished with. They're finished with this. They're finished with this. And they're finished with me. They're looking for a younger Burt. So I said, I have to think about it a little bit, and I did, and I certainly saw the dramatic possibilities in it. Mm. It's kind of horrifying. Oh my God, this can't be. That it was a gut punch in some ways, emotionally, and that sometimes makes for a very good story. Losing a hero. Now, having said that, we entertained the thought. The movie was not written that way. The movie was written with Burt surviving, and at the very last minute, a alternative ending was shot. We shot this 2 ways. We shot this with Burt not surviving. We shot it with him surviving. The only difference being during the quote unquote memorial service of these people, Burt climbs up over the cliff, bloodied and beaten and half destroyed, and looks at them and says, "Jesus, I'm not dead yet," and is really like pissed off at them for even assuming a man like him could die. And then he has an end moment with Carolyn Langrish, where she's like, well, would you do this or would you do that? Or, and he's like, I don't know, I'll see about it or something like that, where the door was sort of open. So it was only in editing. In the editing process, after they'd shot it both ways, that they came to me and said, Michael, we've just looked at this and we think it's best if he doesn't survive. We think it's really powerful. What do you think? And I said, look, I thought this franchise was over after the 4th one. The fact that we've got 7 of them is fine. I'm fine if you want to end it here, but let's think about leaving the door slightly open. And I will simply tell you that we never see a corpse. We never see remains. We have a kind of memorial for Burt there. They put up a cross. Has he in fact been buried under a pile of rubble? Is he in a coma somewhere? Has he been knocked unconscious, woken up, and in a daze simply walked away? We don't see a corpse. We don't see Burt's remains. So the door is, I tell you, slightly open for the fact that he could have survived, and they just all assume, well, he's not back, so he's dead. Nobody survives this sort of thing. Remember, he has been eaten before.
Yeah. Yes,
that's true.
And survived. And so we've left the door open. Now, so I comically suggested to them, I said, if we do an 8th one, and I said, I don't know how many, if you're ready or I'm ready or, but if we do an 8th, I suggest we open up on Burt in a full body cast in a hospital, having been in a coma for 2 years. And everybody says, and nobody knows how to wake him. Nobody has, he's responded to nothing. And finally says, wait, I know how to wake him. I go up to his ear and go, Graboid. And Burt wakes up, like, where am I? And so I don't know. And
Yeah.
but that he has been severely injured and maybe in a coma for 2 years. And maybe he fights Tremors 8 from a weaponized wheelchair. I said that you roll down a ramp and down comes this wheelchair, and Burt is in it in a body cast, but a full on helmet, and it's tricked out with rocket launchers on the side of the wheelchair, and all he's doing is pressing and a machine gun and all this sort of crap. He's got a totally tricked out wheelchair. So I don't know. That's my idea for what could happen in 8.
Okay. So all that being said, and conspiracy theories about where he might be aside, there's also a possibility that he actually really did perish, right?
There is a possibility. And that depends on a couple of things. How much my health 1 or 2 years from now, I'm 73 years of age now. Mm-hmm. My health a few years from now, when they say, let's do another one, I'd probably be 75. Their intention of doing another one.
Yeah.
In some ways I felt even the suggestion meant that Universal was like getting a little tired of the Yes, okay, we've done enough. I'm okay with that. But the other thing I have to think about is sequels. Business is driven by sales. If this is this crazy, overwhelming success, I'm gonna get that phone call, as I did every last time, saying, I think we're gonna do another one. It was so successful that we got to do this. There's money to be made. Show business is, as you probably get, 5% show, 95%, maybe more, 95% business. So sequels are driven by sales.
Yeah.
It's that simple.
Okay. So knowing that there is a possibility that was the end for Burt, was filming though that kind of part emotional for you? Are you gonna miss him? Did you get sad?
I would certainly miss him. It was not emotional for me because, of course, we shot it both ways, and I just assumed I was going to live. And so I didn't think about it much. And actually, I kind of like the fact that they shot a memorial scene because I got an afternoon off. I don't have to work. All right, I'm going to go sit by the swimming pool and nurse my aching shoulder.
Yeah, and rest the shoulder.
So so I didn't feel emotional at the time. Sometimes these things don't hit me. It probably won't hit me until I see it and go, oh my God, is this really over? Yeah. Is this really over? Having said that, I think we did, as Burt Gummer would say, did the best we can with what we got. It was an interesting time reinventing it. Look, there are people out there who are never going to like anything but the first one. And there are going to be people who are going to quibble with every other Tremors they ever see. And I get it. It was a magnificent film and very, very special. And will we ever live up to it? I don't know. We've reinvented it in some ways, particularly after the 13-year hiatus. Mm-hmm. So I think Don, Michael, Paul, and the current producers have did the best they could with what they got. Budgets are shrinking. I would have liked to seen this. Every time I would have liked to seen it go theatrical because I just think there's already a built-in audience, but they don't want to spend the money. That's why you won't even see us at a drive-in movie. I said, this is COVID time. Why not a drive-in? Yeah. And they've thought about that. And they said, it would cost us another $2 million for something like this to get it in drive-ins. And they don't want to spend the money. So, so much of it is, as I say, 5% show, 95% business. Mm-hmm. So that's why it's coming out on video. You will probably never see it theatrically. It's all about the bottom line.
It's a perfect drive-in movie. Watching it, Justin and I were at the drive-in last week, and I was thinking as we're watching it, this would be perfect drive-in movie.
Yeah. Sure. So ain't gonna happen. Believe me, I've explored that. And I've tried to push them. It's like you realize because of unions or this or that, how much it's going to cost us if it's aired theatrically like that. And I went, okay, whatever.
So another possibility, I guess, with all the technology that there is today, or with the Tremors franchise story that's been set forth, if Burt in this movie again really has perished, would you ever be interested in doing something like another prequel or something that takes place before this, or even a sequel of Hiram from number 4 or something like that?
Somebody said to me, would you play Burt Gummer's father in the 40s or 50s? Would you play Burt's dad? And I said, yeah, that sounds kind of interesting. Because I love period pieces. And to be honest with you, after the first one, of the first 4 we did, after the first one, the 4th was my favorite because I just love the arc that Hiram took in that piece. First of all, I love period pieces. I watch a lot of PBS and the great British dramas, and there's a great thing I'm watching right now, a World War II piece on Amazon Prime called A French Village, which is about the village in Vichy, France, which is occupied by the Germans, and about the lives of all these people. And it's like, I'm in my 4th or 5th season of this thing. It was produced in France, English subtitles. The acting is extraordinary, and it's a great period piece. And who doesn't love a movie with Nazis, right? Yeah. So anyway, the perfect villain, next to Precambrian life forms, the Nazis come pretty close. So I loved the opportunity to do a period piece. How do people dress? How do people eat? How do people express themselves? How do people get from one place to another? I got to ride a horse and drive a buckboard and, all that sort of neat stuff. and fire a Gatling gun.
Yes.
And I love the arc of that character. For me, was the most interesting of the characters I played in all of the first four, because Burt was always Burt, and he was basically not going to go through any great changes. But Hiram had to go from this terribly snobbish East Coast, looking down his nose at everybody there. It's like, you people stink. I don't want to be here. I inherited a mine, a silver mine. It's not producing. All I want to do is get this mine producing, and then I'm out of here and back to Philadelphia and civilization as fast as I can. And by the end, you find he has embraced these people he didn't care for. He's actually kind of fallen for this woman who owns the hotel. He comes to know them and comes to like that little Chinese boy too, and he forms a relationship with that boy. And so Hiram is a little like Burt in like, I don't need to get too close to you people in particular. And then he begins to embrace them. So I love the arc of that character, where he began and where he ended. And that is fun for an actor, just that progress through a piece. Burt, for all I love him, did not change much in 1, 2, and 3. He is Burt, the monster hunter. And so that's why in some ways in 5, 6, and 7, we try to take him on an emotional journey as well. Because I find that far more interesting than hunting monsters, actually. The fight, dealing with your inner monsters as well as the outward monsters.
I'm so happy we got to talk about Hiram, because I agree it is my favorite, second only to the first. And speaking of the first, I was curious if it was important for you to kind of bring the story back full circle at the end of how Burt takes out this mega graboid in the same way that Val and Earl did in the first one.
Oh, yeah, right. I never thought about that, but that's absolutely right. We've tried to have little homages to the first. Over in all of the films, in some little reference to it, because that's what started us off. And we can never repeat the first one, but we want to remember it fondly, as we do, as all of us do. I don't know if you probably haven't gotten the DVD yet, but there's some wonderful extras. I must say, they do a little history of all the monsters. They do 30 of the greatest moments from all 7 films.
Nice.
Wow.
Is some of the extras. And I could just tell you how thrilled I was. They did. I knew they were going to do a little homage to Burt over 30 years, because when I went to Thailand, they did an interview with me. What was it like to play Burt for all this, all that sort of sit down interview. And I think I still had the full beard. And because it was before I went to Thailand, and I got out of the limousine at Los Angeles International Airport, and they had sent a film crew to get me walking through the ticket line with my bags packed for Thailand, and going up the escalator and waving goodbye to the boarding area. And they did want to do this whole thing. It's like, here's Burt's 30 years going off to Thailand to do 7. But I did not know they had interviewed other characters. So there's Charlotte Stewart and Ariana Richards, who played, her daughter, and Jamie Kennedy. And by God, they had Kevin Bacon there saying how wonderful it was to work with me in the first one. I was so touched, because I've written Kevin a few times, but we've kind of lost touch. He lives in Connecticut. He lives on the East Coast. And when he's not doing the good work he does on screen, he's the Bacon brothers, he's busy doing that. So I've kind of lost touch with him, but I was very much touched, because they had these interviews with various people who reminisced about the first one or the second and third, and just talked about how nice it was to work with me. And I went to Universal after I saw that, and I said, can I use this in my memorial service? Because it's making me sound like such a nice guy. A lot of people will know this isn't really true, but I want to use this in my memorial service. So they said yes, of course.
Well, I that cannot be true because you've been so generous with your time with us, and this has been such a great interview talking with you. And Elis, I don't know if you have any other questions or anything else, but this was just a delight.
Yeah, it's such an honor to talk to you, and we all really liked this film and all the work that you've done throughout all the Tremors films.
Well, thank you for your enthusiasm, and do remind your viewers that I'm running for president.
Yes. Indeed.
Talk about that. We've got the third episode out of 8 episodes we've done. This is an idea we had at the end of shooting, and we went, hey, a number of people have said Burt Gummer for president over the years. It's like, this is election year. This is a no-brainer. We've got to have him run for president from his secret underground compound. He's going to rule the country from a basement and never leave.
Yeah, the sequel rights gang will be voting.
Amazing. Well, we will definitely
Gummertarian for sure.
Wouldn't it be great if we did an 8th and he actually was president?
Yes. Oh man,
that might be the story right there.
That's right there.
Yeah, right.
It couldn't be any worse than what we're currently,
We've got other monsters to slay on November 3rd. Okay.
Yes. Absolutely.
Y'all take care.
Let's just close with vote, everybody. All right.
Everyone vote.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Be safe.
Thank
You
you,
too.
Michael.
Thank you so much.
You bet.
Again, so great to have Michael Gross with us on this episode. I think he was very insightful, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. Tyler.
Yeah.
I think it's time. We're going to wrap it up. You want to do a rating system?
Oh man, rating system. Yes. Before we get into that, I want to echo what Justin just said. Just a real pleasure with talking Michael Gross, and just a dream interview for this. And it was one of my favorite moments doing this podcast. Rating system. I do believe I love the nomenclature of not calling it a flamethrower, calling it a flame unit. And so I think that we should go with how many flame units would you give Tremors 7 Shrieker Island?
I'm going to give it 8 flame units because I just think it was really good. Like we may have been a little bit unkind to Don Michael Paul in the past, but I don't know what he's been doing since those movies, because this one was just such an improvement, and not just harkens back to the original Tremors movies that we love, but also is good in new ways in its own right. And so that was surprising, pleasantly surprising. And it was just really good.
Yeah, I wish I could remember what I had given all the other ones. I should have looked it up beforehand, but I think I'm also going to go really high on this one and give it an 8 as well, I think. I was going to maybe do 7, Tremors 7, but I'm going to do 8. I just really surprised by this movie. I think we had heard some rumblings before the movie came out that it was really good, but it was still kind of like, I don't know. Is it going to be good?
Yeah.
And I was just so happy to be pleasantly surprised by this movie. They only have one chance to pull the kill Burt Gummer pin, and I think they did it in such a great way. It really gives him a great send-off. He has a super badass death that I think fans are going to be talking about for a long time. And it's really a showcase, again, for Michael Gross. This film, I think he gets to do a lot. There's a lot to love about this movie. Who doesn't want to see a bunch of tech bros getting killed by basically raptors? That's always fun, it's like, it was like nobody other than Burt that you like actually died. So I thought that was great. It's just a fun movie, and I think it's going to be a big talking point for Tremors fans. I can't wait to see what other people think about it this week.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go. I mean, I'm tempted to go 9, but I think I will go 8 flame units for this movie. I think that as I was thinking about it more today, I think that Tremors works the best where like the original one was like a 50s monster movie, right? And like this is almost like a 20s pulpy jungle thing that was, you know, plays off Jurassic Park, which was kind of a play into that. And I feel like just tapping into different classic genres is just really fun for Tremors and is just right for this series. And you know, Michael Gross talked about that the door is not all the way closed. And I would love to see, you know, you could get into Mummy Curse or other things of just like, there's just really seeing this made me so excited for this series again. I thought all the acting was fantastic. I thought that there was themes about science and hubris and ego that with especially as Burt Gummer as the foil were really fun to explore, even in this movie franchise being 30 years old at this point. Like there was a lot of fresh blood, and I just like all of you, I was very surprised by it, and I had a blast watching it. 8 flame units.
Other than the you know, the possibilities that Michael Gross kind of mentioned, I mean, there are other ways they can go forward too, without him. I mean, that could be part of the reason that they brought on a bigger name like John Heder to be in this movie and maybe not overpower Burt, but be introduced into the franchise. I mean, he could lead it going forward. I don't know what happened with Jamie Kennedy and why they chose not to bring him back for this one. I think ultimately for the story, it was good and it worked. And I like the new character, but maybe they decide to, you know, bring them back together at some point in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, all I got to say is that the next one had better be a full-on Halloween zombie Burt Gummer versus undead graboids, or I'm out.
I second that motion.
The motion
carries.
That would be my dream one. That would be so fun.
Yeah.
I don't know, just a full on jokey one. I would love it. But yeah, I think that's going to bring us to the end of Tremors Shrieker Island this week. Again, thank you so much to Universal 1440 and Michael Gross for being on this episode. It was so great to talk to him, and we hope you guys really enjoyed it.
Yeah, let us know what you think and send us an email at sequelrights@gmail.com or talk to us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at Sequel Rights.
And thanks everybody for tuning in. If we have new listeners that are here to hear what Michael Gross had to say, welcome. We appreciate you. If you like what you heard, please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. We'd really appreciate it. It would help us a lot. We don't have any ads here, but we rely on our fan base that has been great, and welcome to the fold.
Yeah, and you can go back and listen to our other Tremors episodes or any other. I'm sure you've seen some other franchises that we've done at this point.
Yes.
That's right. And if you're interested in our thoughts on another septuagenarian action film, listen next week to our delayed review of Phantasm Ravager. It's going to be fun to wrap up that series. And if you're a new listener, go back and start from the beginning, and you can hear us talk through it all. We'll see you guys next week for Phantasm Ravager.